The Life Coaching Toolbox Podcast is brought to you by Joeel and Natalie Rivera of Transformation Academy. In this episode, Joeel talks about why affirmations and incantations really work. This episode is one of 11 episodes in a series about coaching your clients to develop emotional intelligence and master their emotions.
So have you ever heard of the term affirmations? Affirmations are written or spoken words that we state and that we affirm to ourselves that in a lot of ways create our reality. But affirmations are very powerful because it rewires our thoughts and it can be used to replace negative belief systems to empowering belief system. It changes our focus. It changes our perception of our environment because you have this thing called the reticular activating system, for example. And that reticular activating system is very goal-oriented, very small, but it's constantly looking around to answer the goal of the things that you tell yourself. So, for example, if you tell yourself, oh, I'm going to forget these things on the test. I'm going to forget these things. What tends to happen is that your reticular activating system, as soon as you get on the test, your reticular activating system will say, forget it, forget it. You need to forget it because remember, that's what you need to do. That's what you said you would do. If you tell yourself, I don't know if I can do that, I'll be too afraid. Then as soon as you go to that situation, reticular activating system says, okay, you're supposed to be afraid, release fear hormones. Or if you say to yourself, well, I'm going to be anxious by doing that. It's just going to be too overwhelming. What does your reticular activating system do? It creates that reality because that is its purpose. Its purpose is to do the things that you tell it it's supposed to do. It's a command center for the brain. So what tends to happen is that what we think and what we state becomes a reality because we're being driven by this force of our brain to make it a reality. So, for example, if you are in a positive state, if you're thinking positive thoughts and things like that, your reticular activating system naturally will look for positive things in your environment. If you have a negative thought process currently, or you're saying negative things about yourself or your environment, your reticular activating system is looking for that because it's called confirmation bias. Our brain wants to confirm the things that we believe, the things that we tell ourselves. Naturally, that's part of our hardwiring. I'll give you another perfect example. Let's say if you bought a red car, a specific model, all of a sudden you never saw them on the road, but once you buy it, you start seeing them everywhere. Why? Because your reticular activating system now is emotionally attached to that, so it looks for it. I'll give you a perfect example. I used to tell myself, I'm just not smart enough, blah, blah, blah. And what I do, I failed my first year of college. I learned about affirmations. I learned about that. And I used to look at myself all the time and say, Joeel, you're a genius. Joeel, you're a genius. Joeel, you're a genius. And what happened? I went back to school and graduated with straight A's. Got my associate, and then my bachelor's, and then went for my PhD. Every time getting better and better grades. I think bachelor's was like a 3.8, master's like a 3.9, PhD 4.0. So it wasn't that I got smarter, but my thought process of myself changed. Same thing with public speaking. Before, I didn't feel comfortable at all. It was kind of a little overwhelming. And then I would tell myself or affirm myself, you're a great speaker. Everyone loves what you're saying. You're empowering. You're confident. You're smart, and blah, blah, blah. And it would make me feel empowered. It would make me believe these things. So I created them in my reality. So there are 4 keys to creating affirmations that truly work, that are going to help you long term. The first one is believable. You have to have affirmations that you truly believe, because if you don't believe them, then they're going to go to the wayside. And sometimes you got to create kind of that foundation and that skill. For example, I failed my first year of college. Initially, I used to look at myself in the mirror and say, Joeel, you're a genius. Joeel, you're a genius. You'd be like, seriously, Joeel? You just failed college. How are you a genius? But part of my core really believed that I was. Part of my core really believed that I was smart enough, that I was smarter than what I was showing. So it's easy for me to change some of the things. The second part of the first part is that you have to be able to control it. You can't say something like, this person's going to change. This person's going to change. If you can't control the other person, then you can't affirm something for someone else. It has to be something that you can control within yourself. The second part of creating a good affirmation statement is that it has to be in the present tense. If you want something to happen, you have to act like it's happening now. I'm patient, I'm happy, I'm loving, I'm caring, even if you're not those things. But if you say it enough times, then your brain will look for ways to make you more of that. If you tell yourself enough times that, you look for the positive in people, your brain will look for the positives in people. But you have to say like it's happening right now for your brain to say, well, if it's not happening, there's something wrong here. There's something that's not adding up. So we have to make it add up. And then the other part is that you have to make it personal. It has to be I statements. I'm doing this. We're doing this, because you want your brain to know that you're talking about you. You're not talking about someone else. You're talking about I am doing these things. The other part is positives. You see, many people say, well, I no longer feel fear, or I no longer feel this, or I'm no longer doing this. But the problem is that it's still negative, because you're still focusing on the negative side. You have to create affirmations that focus on things that you want. So I'm confident. I'm capable, smart. I'm loving. I'm this. I'm unstoppable. Again, things that you want to change, keep it positive. The other part is that you have to feel it. It can't just be statement. I can't just sit there in front of the mirror and say, Joel, you're a genius. Joel, you're a genius. Because what happens? I don't believe it, and I won't change, and I won't create it. So you have to feel it when you say it. The other part is that you have to say it consistently. Realistically, the negative affirmation and statements that you tell yourself, I hear people say, I'm just the anxious type. That's who I am. Or I'm the fearful type. So when they say that over and over again, they're creating the negative affirmation. So the positive ones have to be said repeatedly. You have to at minimum say it 3 to 5 times a day for 21 to 30 days to start changing your perspective, to start creating it for your brain to actually be able to believe it. And some people, they schedule it in. You put it on your phone where it sets you a reminder. You put it in front of your mirror. So when you walk to brush your teeth, you see it there and you say it. Or you can put it in your dashboard in your car. So then you say it again when you get into your car. So on and so on and so on. Make it visible somewhere that you're not going to forget that you have to do that and that you want to do that, because it's going to impact your life. Or I talk to people that say affirmations like, I don't have enough time. I don't have time. I just can't do it because I don't have time. So what happens? They don't have time. Because the time that they do have, then they waste it because the reticular activating system wants to prove them right that they don't have time. Because that is the role of the reticular activating system. So you might change the affirmation to, I make time for what's important to me. Because then your brain says, well, if it's important, then we got to find a way to make time. Your brain looks for ways to make that happen, in other words. And there might be other affirmations. You might say, well, life is hard, or I am the fearful type, or I'm anxious, or I am this in a situation. You got to remember that certain emotions are very similar. Like excitement is very similar to fear, of how our body reacts. Or anxiety, excitement, our body, when our heart starts racing, when we're a little bit more excited, we get a little flush and things like that because we're excited. But when we're anxious, it's very similar. But when we say I am anxious, you're already defining that feeling. So by doing that, you're creating in your reticular activating system then to focus on things that you would focus on when you're anxious. It would focus on your environment, react the way that you would when you're anxious. So again, very powerful. I am statements are extremely impactful. So you want to make sure that every time you say I am, it's positive. Because if you use I ams that are negative, you are directing them at yourself. Because sometimes it's not that, someone is a liar, that you're a liar. You might have lied in that situation, but you're not specifically a liar. If you lie all the time, then you are a liar. Or it might be that you felt anxious. When you say I'm anxious, you're defining that as part of you. When you say I felt, then it's just the feeling that happened at that particular moment. You see the difference? So instead of using I am statements, if you use terminology that can focus on that situation, on that specific scenario, then it doesn't create this belief system, this who you are, because you probably not that. And the other part is incantations. So incantations is one of the most powerful things because it's bringing affirmations to a physical side. So it's a phrase or language patterns that you have that engage your physiology. So what makes it powerful is that affirmations alone, a lot of times, are not enough to help you change your state. But when you have incantations that go along with it, incantations are one of the most powerful things that you can have. Because it's an extremely powerful tool, because what incantations do is that helps you embody it. So for example, you stand tall and you say something about yourself and you move your body and you say like, I'm confident. And you say it and you move your body. And so it's triggering your brain to look at it from a deeper level. So now it's just words. Now you're just embodying it at a physical, emotional, neurological level that changes those belief systems at a very, very different level than just a simple statement. Just the fact that when you stand with your hands like this, like if you just won something, studies have shown that just that action, and then having a blind study where people then would go interview, not knowing who did that and who didn't, with the same resumes, the people that did this actually got the job in a lot higher frequency, significantly a lot higher than the other people. Why? Because this is universal for someone who's excited, someone who's confident. So just that physical movement can shift so many parts of us. So having that emotional intensity is very, very important. And you can also do it in the sense that, like, for example, I record some of my incantations and I listen to them and I say them, and it's almost like I even put music in the background. And when I say it, I'm moving my body, I'm moving my hands, and I'm feeling it, but I believe it at my core. Even if I didn't fully believe it initially, after several incantations, I believe it at my core. And that's what helps me create a lot of the reality. That's what helps me shift my state, my emotional state when I need to, because I have that foundation of affirmations mixed with incantations to create the reality that I want when it comes to my emotional, when it comes to my career, whatever it may be. So you might tell yourself again, I'm determined, I am courageous, I am confident, I'm capable of doing it. And again, move your body, feel it. Follow that through, create your affirmations, look at how you can say them in a statement with your incantations, put them together, and transform your life. Thank you.
Visit transformationacademy.com/toolbox to download free life coaching worksheets that go with the activities discussed in this podcast, plus other resources for creating a thriving life coaching business.